ask Nicole to take roll call, please.
Bodie,
Here.
Carberry Montgomery,
Here.
McBurney,
Here.
Rosendahl.
Here.
Excellent.
All right, and Amy's absent. We'll move on to approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by McBurney, second by Rosendahl. Discussion, roll call.
McBurney,
Yes.
Rosendahl,
Yes.
Bodie,
Yes.
Carberry Montgomery.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Item 3.1 is to discuss the fire department 28E agreements. And who's going to start us off, Chief or AJ, or who's going to start us off?
I'll make a brief introduction, Mr. Mayor, if you would, please. Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
members of council, thank you for your time this afternoon. This is one of these items that we've kind of been giving, for some of you, I've had individual conversations, some snippets of this as we've been developing this over the last multiple months with our partner in the city of Clive. I'll give some background, then I'll turn it over to Chief Cardwell for a deeper dive into the explanation of the agreements that we're proposing. I sent these agreements out to you and some information, the narrative material last week in advance of this meeting. Hopefully you've had a chance to review them. It's a lot of information, but again, the first of many steps that you'll be taking for the approval of them, hopefully. Let me give you a little background, and this is, again, covering some ground I'm sure you're all well aware of. Multiple years ago that we have had a long-standing relationship with the city of Clive for not only fire and EMS support, but also training. They're one of the partners that helped us build our training center out at 42. Having said that as a backdrop, then as that relationship matured over the years and as our department, quite honestly, grew and came from the permanent part-time status and those type of things to the full-on department that we are now, that relationship as it matured led us to the point of having a closest unit response agreement. That was coverage of service. We did a number of studies about placement of 43. All these things kind of blend together, but the closest unit response arrangement has been in place now for a number of years, and I would have to say that it has been a very successful relationship that we've had with the city of Clive. Closest unit response, for those of you on the council that may not recall, or this may be, again, something you don't have a lot of discussion about, but since Clive and the Urbandale belong to Westcom, they're founding members of the Westcom communication system. So communication a call comes into Westcom saying that they need assistance. What they can do right now is through their dispatching system, they identify the call and they will dispatch the closest unit either in Clive or in Urbandale to provide that resident business assistance, and that is with fire and EMS. Again, it's the reciprocal nature of the agreement provides that we have coverage out of our 3 stations and out of the central station in Clive that still provides us that coverage in those desirable timeframes to get service. I would say biasly that this is a very successful program. The chief can comment on that more because I know he gets comments from other people in his profession about how this works and how they may look at it. Again, for the geographically, it works well because we share a common border with Hickman. And again, access to emergency personnel makes it very easy. Using that as a backdrop, then we have had discussions, and these were initiated by Chief Cardwell and his counterpart in the city of Clive, that we look at other ways that we can enhance this level of service. And so the draft 28E agreements that were shared outline those specific opportunities that we're looking at. One of them, and I will just give a kind of a disclaimer right now, not a disclaimer, but just a point of explanation on the maintenance piece that we supplied, the 28 degree, and I'll let the chief go through that. Right now, there is a question mark on some personnel related issues on our side, but a potential deployment. And so that's in our maintenance area. So we're kind of holding that as an implementation date yet to be determined based on our capacity to do that work. We don't want to sign an agreement with your approval that says we're going to deliver a service that we're unable to. That may or may not be the case. We were looking at implementation in January. This may be pushed back, but with your permission, we'll work with that internally once we know the complete status of the individual who may or may not be deployed. And that person's a critical factor in our maintenance operation. And again, it may not have that big of an impact, but again, let us come to that full determination. We'll report back later on that one. These agreements, again, have been discussed at a staff level. They've been reviewed at a legal level. And now it's time to bring you folks into the discussion prior to any type of formal request for your adoption of the 2080 agreements. So with that as a background, Chief, I'll turn it over to you and let you give an overview of the programs and answer any questions they have.
Thank you. I'm going to try to share my screen, hopefully. Okay, so you should all be able to see, this is just a quick overview of 28E agreements in general, how the fire departments work together, and then I'll get into the specifics of each of the agreements. Can everybody see the share okay, the presentation? Great. Okay, just a quick explanation about how we work together. Traditionally, fire departments would only call each other when they had the big fire, and that was what we called mutual aid. You'd get on scene, you realize it was too big, you'd call for help. With upgrades in automatic dispatching, with the use of CAD, computer-aided dispatching, we're able to pre-program those responses. So the way that normally works is that if we have several calls going on and we run out of ambulances, then the computer will go find the next available ambulance, the next available fire truck, and then that will just automatically dispatch it or auto-fill it. What we've been doing with Clive is sort of the next iteration of that. And again, utilizing CAD technology and geomapping, when the call comes in, CAD will actually look for the closest unit between Clive or Urbandale, whether it's a medical call or a fire call, and then it will dispatch whatever's the closest as if there weren't any political boundaries. So it views right now, CAD views Clive and Urbandale as being completely interchangeable, and we respond to them, they respond to us. That's the closest unit agreement that we originally signed a number of years ago, and we'll talk about how we're updating that. The shared resource is sort of the highest level that you can get to without actually, mutually forming together or forming some type of joint agreement, where by agreement, two communities agree to share a resource, which we're already doing in Station 43. And it can be small, like we have with our mobile vent fan. It can be a station where basically one community agrees to provide a resource to another, typically involving some type of fee or cost, which is what we actually have going on in Station 43. So this is just a list of some of our current agreements that are in place. As you can see, they go all the way from the state level, all the way down to just where one-on-one partners, for example, with the City of Clive, where we share our Opticom system. So that's what allows us to preempt the traffic signals. But as you can see, we're already a part of a number of agreements that exist, and we have been doing them successfully. So what we're considering or asking you to consider at council next week are these three agreements, two of which are existing and we're simply updating and in one case expanding. And then the other one, which is the shared service agreement at the end, that's going to be the new one. So the first one is going to be the current deal we have with Station 43. The second one is going to be an expansion of closest unit in what we're calling operational alignment, which I'll explain here in a little bit. And then the third one is actually a service and maintenance agreement, which is kind of an outgrowth of the second one. So let's take a look at the first one, which is the Station 43 agreement. The titles are really long, but basically this is the Station 43 deal. We needed a new station. Clive needed coverage on their west side. So we said, hey, how about we work together? So the deal as it exists today is that we built the building, we provide the trucks, we provide the people. Clive agrees to pay us 40% of the annual cost of personnel assigned to Station 43. We've updated the agreement to reflect our current staffing number of 18 personnel at that building. And all the rest of that pretty much remains the same. There's a couple of tweaks that Clive asked for with regard to how we do the billing and the payments, but no change to the base part of the agreement. We did make the agreement evergreen so that you do have to go back and renew it every certain amount of time. We also standardized a separation clause, so 2 years. We felt that having 2 years, if one or the other feels that the arrangement isn't working, that gives the other partner enough time to make any plans to do anything that they need to in terms of making up that hole in their service. So not a whole lot of changes with regard to Station 43 with how that arrangement's being done. So the shared service agreement, again, I'm sorry, skipped one ahead. This is the operational alignment closest unit. It's been in place since 2017. It was sort of unique for its time that we said we will all basically work together. So we're continuing that, but we took a look at it. How can we really go to the next level with this? So what we've agreed to is we're going to standardize as much as we can our training, our internal certifications, all of that type of stuff. We were adding the battalion chiefs. Clive does not have a in-state or in-city command staff. Most of their command officers live outside of the city, so it makes sense. We're already doing it. Whenever our battalion chief responds with multiple stations, then we will respond the battalion chief, giving us that on-scene initial command responsibility. The big thing we're moving here is we're going to coordinate apparatus. And this is the one area we've always said that if we could start looking at some of the back end of stuff, that's where you can start looking at potentially saving money. So we've agreed how to standardize we replace our apparatus, which is based on our fleet services. Patrick and Tim have looked over it, and these are their recommendations. How long we keep ambulances, how long we keep fire trucks. We've agreed to standardize that across the cities. And we've agreed to work out a shared reserve apparatus. So we will, so we don't each have to maintain 2 or 3 ambulances spare. We've agreed to share them. So we each have an immediate reserve, but if you need that second level of reserve, then we can agree to borrow each other. And we've worked through the insurance questions on what that has to look like. It's simplified by the fact that we both have ICAP, but again, John Conyer has looked at that, and we've met with ICAP, and they've said, yep, as long as, it is something that's actually already done in the fire service in terms of borrowing apparatus. It's just, we're just kind of putting it on paper. So that, again, the 2-year separation clause, and this agreement is really important because it allows both communities to really plan. And we'll talk about that when we get to the end. An outgrowth of that was the shared services agreement, where we said, okay, well, if we're going to borrow your trucks or you're going to borrow our trucks, then we want to make sure that all the trucks are being maintained at the same level. Fleet has been managing our vehicles for 3 years and doing a great job, Patrick and his team down there. Clive was frankly kind of envious about how we were doing that part of it in terms of access, quick getting the repairs done, having ensured that the mechanics are all emergency vehicle technician certified, something our guys have been working to. So we said, well, what does that look like? We took a look at it, talked to Tim and Patrick, made sure they had the capacity, made sure that it made sense. So we proposed basically bringing them in as a client, if you will, of our fleet management. The fee will be based on the way we handle all the internal departments. Based on their number of vehicles. Tim and Patrick agreed to 25% as a base fee plus the standard hourly rate, which is, by the way, significantly less than what you would pay if you went anywhere else, like to a diesel mechanic or over to an apparatus repair place. So it's really a pretty good savings on that part. We get the advantage of knowing that the trucks are all being maintained exactly the same. It really improves their ability to do routine maintenance. And as we've said, frankly, if the truck is broken in Clive, we can just roll it into the street and push it down the hill, and it'll be there in 2 minutes. Nice thing is, again, if they have a problem with their truck, our guys can be over there in less than a minute to take a quick look. A lot of the repairs can really be done in the station, so that's a big savings for them, not only in terms of cost, but also for us. It's about how long the vehicle's out of service. So this will really be a big advantage to them. They've looked at it from their side. They've been out and met with our shop people. They're very enthusiastic about it. You'll notice this one only has a 1-year separation clause, but that's just because this is a new piece. So Clive has said, we really want to take a look at that. But Let's make sure it's working before we move it out to the 2-year place where we were before. And that's why there's a bit of a difference there. So,
Chief,
One of
can
the
I just
other-
stop here? Can I just
Sure.
ask a question? So with the 1 year separation, there won't be any ramp down. If they terminated, there wouldn't be any ramp down costs that we'd be having to incur.
the only potential there would be a personnel thing, but we've already taken it on knowing that at current time, we didn't need to add staffing to begin with. Now, in the future, as our fleet grows, then there becomes that possibility. But the initial agreement was based on the fact that we had the capacity in-house to begin with. We
Okay.
already have all the equipment and the supplies and everything. They're going to move their apparatus to align with ours, so that way, and we to them, so that going forward, we'll all be able to have the same truck. So our mechanics, when they're working on our fire apparatus, will already be trained. It'll be Pierce apparatus. They've just bought another Pierce fire apparatus. It will really simplify that part of the process. So
Right. My only thought was on the
what
1
happens
year.
if it bad? Yep.
Right. Yeah. So we don't, but we're okay. I think you've answered my question. Thank you.
We should be okay. Again, looking at that, okay, well, what does that look like? Well, we realized it kind of makes sense to have like apparatus in stations with like apparatus. We just actually arrived on Friday, our new ladder truck. We're currently in the CIP is to replace or buy a backup ladder truck because you need to have a second one. So we said, well, why can't we just swap trucks? So we went and talked to different people and said, that's kind of unique, but why not? So right now we have a agreement where we've worked out the details. We'll be bringing back a more formal document to you after these are adopted, where we're actually thinking about or working towards, we're going to sell them our reserve engine, and they are going to sell us their ladder truck, which will then become our backup. And there is a price offset between the two. We've had them both appraised by a mutually agreed company. There's some work that needs to be done on their truck, but we've already worked out a plan to make sure that's all completed before we would complete the sale of the truck. What this allows us to do is it allows us to remove from service our 2005 American LaFrance truck, which is what we really need to replace. It's 20 years old. We can't get parts for it anymore. This will give us a reliable backup truck and allows us to extend out that replacement truck. Instead of having to be ordering it this year, we push that out another, we won't have to take in another truck for another 10 years. Because again, that truck, or another 8 years. So a ladder truck is expected to last about 20 years, and reserve will be able to actually push that out maybe a little bit further. So it's really pushing that down the road. They would need a reserve engine now, which now they would have our truck, which is in good condition. And of course, we can still access that engine as a reserve truck as part of the shared reserve apparatus agreement. So it just makes sense across the board. It removes the need for them to maintain a ladder truck. And it will give us a good backup for the one that we just got that'll be in good condition for the next several years. So again, we explored it as an idea. It's been run through all the different people, and they're like, yep, there's no reason you can't do it. So once we agree to these other 328Es, then we'll work on creating the memorandum of understanding for both communities to sign, and then move forward with the sale of the truck probably into the next fiscal year based on getting the repairs done and all of that. So we have to update the CIP. So it's in that process as well. So that's why we're looking into the next fiscal year. What does it look like? Some of the other things that might impact these agreements as we move forward. As AJ mentioned, we are getting interest from other neighboring departments. We're already looking to do a closest unit trial with Johnston Grimes. They're very interested in exploring it as we make some of these communication upgrades. West Des Moines is looking at some type of regional approach to special operations. West Des Moines has also started throwing out, hey, maybe we should start looking at this closest unit, some type of arrangement there as well. Clive and West Des Moines have a shared service agreement for their West Station. They're looking at the future of that and what our agreements will mean there. Clive is obviously paying attention to the eventual replacement of Station 41, which is currently in the CIP as an out-year thing, but we've already identified that that station is reaching its end of life, and we will need to look at that. But we've reassured them that we would do so recognizing that Clive is our partner, and that any things that we pay attention to there would make sure that we aren't hurting that relationship. And that's been expressed to them. So there really are some things that are moving forward past these agreements, but all of them are going to be beneficial to the city of Urbandale in terms of locking in our ability to get that depth, which is the money you really don't want to spend. You don't want to spend money on and have it sitting on a shelf, so to speak. So having the ability to share those shelved resources, that reserve apparatus, the rarely used equipment, that type of stuff, that's where you can really start to see some financial benefits from these types of arrangements. So that being said, that's my quick overview of the 2080 agreements that we're going to be asking you to approve next week. Are there any questions I can answer for you?
Hi, it's Bridget. I don't have any questions, but this is one of the things that I am really most proud of in terms of regional agreement and cooperation. I think it's just amazing that we're able to operate as partners with Clive so seamlessly. You know, people don't really know that we have this relationship, and you know, an Urbandale truck may show up at your house in AJ's backyard of Clive. But you know, it's so seamless, and I love to see us doing even more with this. This is fantastic, and I'd like to shout this from the rooftops to let those in other communities and the legislature know that we're doing good stuff down here when we aren't impeded.
I like the way you put that. Thank you.
Thanks, Bridget.
If I may, Mayor and members of council, again, there's a lot of things that work in our favor. The contiguous border, the joint training that we've been engaged in for a long time, and the realization that, if we want to provide a high level of service, it's really, as the chief mentioned, it's easier to do when we combine these opportunities that, again, not every community has this. Obviously we wouldn't have an agreement with Altoona. The distance is just not workable. But if it manifests itself into other opportunities that make sense, and we don't compromise the position of the city to provide for our residents, then I think it does make sense. And there are things that will happen at the legislative area that are beyond our control that we'll have to make adaptations for. So it's nice to know that we have one current and one former council member heading downtown that can help carry that message.
I had a question that was adjacent to this, considering that have we invited the Clive folks to the Station 43 bond cutting and that event?
Yes.
Excellent. That's good.
Yep. That's already been taken care of.
Excellent.
In fact, we're hoping they'll be there to actually sign these agreements. I've worked with Derek Zarn. We're going to create a big signature page that both communities can agree to sign, at least signaling their intent that, that we're going to move these forward and continue our partnership, because Station 43 was born of that partnership. So.
Yep.
I love that. That's a great idea.
All right. Any other further comments? Chief, good job. I echo all the comments. It's just another chapter in good governmental collaboration. So let's keep moving.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Chief. All right. Then we will move on to item 3.2, and that is to discuss the City Council rules of procedure. And Nicole, are you going to take the lead on this?
I'm looking at AJ. Okay. Certainly. All right. Well, thank you, Mayor and Council, for the time to discuss the rules of procedure and take a fresh look at getting some of these things in place for you. The state of Iowa allows for the city council to determine its own rules. So the purpose of these is to establish those clear and consistent guidelines for conducting the business. Really, as we looked at putting together this refresh document, I will say there have been documents over the history of the city, but not one in recent times that we've really leaned into. So the top three focus, we wanted to draft an updated document that really captured your current practices, right? To memorialize what you're currently doing. We wanted to fill in the gaps and add a few enhancements based on our conversations after the strategic planning and having this identified through that as a goal and as a goal there and as a project through that process. And then also just provides the framework for future changes or future discussions and things where areas where you can build out and incorporate anything, whether it be a law change or something else that you just desire to have changed in the framework. So it really gives us that document to incorporate anything of that in the future. It's really important that you keep in mind this is a living document. So similar to like our employee handbook or really any of our policies, this is something that changes at your direction, right? So the goal today was really just to give you an opportunity to provide some feedback on the document, discuss anything that you agree with, don't agree with, would like to see changed, and give us some direction on if and how you'd like to move this forward. We did, of course, incorporate some additional guidelines. Those are just really helpful, especially to my office as we look to build the meeting calendars, as we look to what moves forward, how staff reviews proclamation requests, those types of things that just kind of fit nicely underneath this as guidance for staff on those items. I'll point out before I turn it over for your discussion that one addition we did make was that special topics information and discussion on the layout of the agenda. So that would be an area on the strategic plan, you identified it as an open forum. So really we would have to list those items so that you could have a robust discussion on them, but that might be things like a department update. It might be an update on a strategic plan initiative or on a project, or following up on something that maybe you've brought forward at a mayor and council item in the past that staff has an update to provide. So those would be, again, listed under, there would be specific items listed under there for your discussion. So certainly looking forward to hearing your feedback.
Yeah, thank you, Nicole. And Al, I just wanted to echo a couple of things. Nicole and I have kind of gone back and forth on some of these things through the years, and I really appreciate her digging into this. Especially on proclamations. That was one that I always thought we should have some sort of standardized procedure on. So when we have requests for those to come in, that we can kind of have a flow chart as far as looking at whether or not it's appropriate and how we do it and how we get those done. So you'll also notice that we've had standards of, they're not on the agenda for today, but we also have had previously standards of participation at public meetings, and Nicole also revised those recently. And that's currently, there's a draft of that, or there are copies of that outside of the chambers too, and they really look a lot better, and they're streamlined, cleaned up. And so I think it's great that we get all of these put together and in place, so we do have a place to go to if we ever have a question on whether or not we should be doing something or how we should be doing something. So with that, I will open the floor to the rest of the council.
So
Wow.
we one thought I was curious about was specifically on the mayor and council items. I'm having a trouble finding that specific section, but I know I saw it. So with that, was it basically like if we bring an item up during mayor and council items, if we haven't basically aired it before to actually get it explicitly listed on the agenda, it's something that we should probably just have a more full fleshed out discussion at a following meeting to do that, or that's what I was trying to figure out with that.
Yes, I think what you're referring to is some additional text on page 9. And I do have a note to maybe tie that more concretely back to referring to mayor and council items, where it's talking about guidelines and consideration of the matters not on agenda. So where it's talking about no material discussion can be held. So as you go, you're going around the table, providing updates from different boards and things. If there are things we want to delve into, we can certainly bring them back as a listed item.
Gotcha. And if we wanted to have like a more detailed discussion, we would want to get that on the agenda beforehand so that we could have that during that meeting. Sounds good. Thanks for that clarification.
I'll just say I thought this captured a lot of what I thought we'd talked about. So I thought someone did a really good job of listening.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I feel like this is very consistent with what we've been doing and what we've asked to be done. So, great job, Nicole.
Yeah, if you can see me, I'm pointing my picture's above Nicole, and it's down. It's her. She's done the good job on it.
I'll say it's really
Yeah,
been
absolutely.
a team effort to put together all the feedback and make sure we have it incorporated. And I do look forward to having this be something that is just a routine item for you to review and approve and to build in any additional areas that are helpful to outline. It's a really helpful document for me, so it's self-serving in that as well.
Yep, absolutely. And certainly as time goes on, if things change or if we find something that's not working like it should, it's not completely set in stone. We can agree to revise it.
So is this is going to come to us as part of an agenda to approve, or is this just basically a document that we just put in the folder and say, all right, we can use this now whenever we need to?
We will bring it forward for a formal approval, yep, on the next council
Sounds
agenda.
good.
If that works for you all.
Yeah, works for me.
And I know Amy's not here today, but I know she made a comment. I think it's a good idea that we maybe have copies of this available at the dais or somehow at least readily available to the council members,
Absolutely.
especially since we're going to have a new council member next year. So. Sorry, Larry, I'm not trying to kick you out already, but just looking ahead.
It's a warm welcome. Don't worry, Bob.
All right. Any further discussion on that? Well, we've gotten through our regular agenda pretty quickly, so thank you for the discussion on that. And the next item on our agenda would be to enter into closed session pursuant to Iowa Code 21.51I at the request of the potential candidates for city manager. Is there a motion to that effect?
So move.
Motion by Bodie,
Second.
second by Rosendahl. Discussion, roll call, please.
Bodie,
Yes.
Rosendahl,
Yes.
Carberry Montgomery,
Yes.
McBurney.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
All right, thank you. So Nicole,
Hello.
you'll be putting us in